Let me share with you some of my thoughts about the last 2 days of postings by Quew, including all of the September 19th ones, and I'm going to be selective in what I respond. And there are 2 now from the 20th, which is today. And then I have some other thoughts to share. So the first Quew posting is just a common maybe is not the right word for it, a synopsis of what Quew has been pointing out concerning the office of the Inspector General with Horowitz. There is a reference here to a speech by Horowitz at a whistleblowers convention. It was impressive, and it was impressive both with respect to Horowitz within the community of Inspectors General, and also impressive with respect to his references to whistleblowers across not just the department in which he is working now, but across, 17 departments where there are inspector generals. So rather interesting. There is a link to a guy named Robert Storch, who is now named as the NSA Inspector General, and press releases on him, and he has fairly impeccable credentials and appears to be a real straight-up dude. The whole linkage to Inspector Generals themselves and their organizations, I was impressed most about the whole whistleblower thing, and the fact that the Inspector Generals actually are feeding from comments and statements and submissions made by whistleblowers. The problem with it is, of course, is that it is not, the Inspector Generals are getting information from the whistleblowers, but the Inspector Generals are not necessarily protecting the whistleblowers. And I think that's a very critical fact. Frankly, I think it's something that needs to be shored up. Where a whistleblower speaks to the Inspector General and then is vilified or somehow removed from position or separated or demoted or isolated within a department, there should be an Inspector General report that goes on that as well, so that the whistleblowers are not supposed to be retaliated against. But as a practical matter, that's still happening, and there are whistleblowers in a variety of other settings in which that's happening. So there's also discussion here about the whole Huber thing and how Sessions has worked around having a second special counsel and having the appointment taking years to do it, having a 20-person team when he tucked Huber in under the Inspector General, under Horowitz, and has 470 people working. Goes back to support Sessions. There's all kinds of, the entire alt community is splayed about Sessions and whether or not he's a good guy or a bad guy. I think the bottom line is, as I see it, the bottom line, and this is where I end up with it, the bottom line is, if Sessions is not good, Trump is not good. Think about this. The two of them have played tag, have played cat and mouse, have talked about their dissatisfaction with each other, and frankly, it looks like a game. And nobody who is President of the United States, especially one who made his reputation on firing people on TV, would keep Sessions there if he was as dissatisfied as he appears to be at times, and where there is as much fallout as there appears to be about all kinds of things going from the Justice Department, the DOJ, and also from the FBI, and it's still not cleaned up. And then we've got Mueller besides. And of course, Sessions did recuse himself. He didn't redact himself. He should redact himself, put a line over him. Did recuse himself, but and that took him out of the Rosenstein-Mueller loop and the oversight of Mueller and his limitations in his office and giving him further directions. Obviously, the the charter by which Mueller was employed, was hired, is too broad. And that is something that should be fixed with special investigators or special counsel forever. I mean, it should be limited to the primary obligation of the process itself and to no other. And if there is other criminality found, it should not be the parameter or the purview of special counsel to prosecute it. It should be turned over to the Department of Justice and taken completely out of it. And obviously the Department of Justice is using Papadopoulos and Carter Page, maybe or maybe not, and of course Manafort, to try to leverage the whole special prosecution. So the next one has to do with Rod Rosenstein trying to put off declassifying or removing redactions from the release that Trump authorized and ordered, as a matter of fact. So here it is, and there are two problems with this. One has to do with Rosenstein, and of course we've seen this all along, dragging his feet around Nunes and the whole bunch right from the start, trying to keep the Congress from getting the information it needed. Now he's attempting, apparently, we don't know this, but he's, according to Q, he's attempting to remove, slow walk the stuff that Trump has ordered. When I looked at the Trump authorization or release, the removal of confidentiality, the removal of classification of this material, there are no caveats to speak of. It is open it up. And of course, we know from other stuff that Q's posted and from the executive orders having to do with classifications, that there is to be no classification of material which does not deserve to be classified and where it is being used to hide the process. So does this put us in a place where Rosenstein can be fired? Yeah, yes, it does, because this is a violation of his duty to his ultimate employer, and Trump has the right, as the ultimate employer, as the executor, as the commander-in-chief, to order anybody to do anything that's legal. And the right of the person to refuse is either to refuse to do so and hand it to somebody else, or to go to court. And in this case, neither of those is available. So he should be relieved of duty, at least as it relates to this process, if he won't do what he's supposed to do, and he should be fired. And of course, there is a later comment, I think it is, by Q, basically saying, hey, look, if, let me see what we've got here, because I think I thought I saw it, having to do with getting rid of Rosenstein if he doesn't follow through. There is also a comment later on, and I'm not going to do these in sequence, wherein Sessions apparently went to two of the Supreme Court justices requesting a clarification on his where he had recused himself, whether he can reverse that recusal where there is no longer the underlying process is no longer in play, and that's clearly the case. All right, so the next one has to do with Twitter and Nation on Alert, and oh, this is the one. This goes back to notifying on a Trump Twitter, and then Q posting in January, basically saying that if you fire Rosenstein or Mueller, you load up and get past the red line. And then, of course, there is this comment about Schiff and Warner, Pelosi, and who's the Schumer, claiming that Trump has gone too far and this stuff should not be declassified. It is not within their parameter. It is not within their purview. They have no right to interfere with the executive branch. If they don't like it, they can pass legislation to change the way it operates or to somehow limit the president, provided it doesn't violate the Constitution. They can't preclude the president from acting as the president. That just doesn't work. And then Q says he's going to do he, it, they, AI, the Russian bots, whatever it is, that they would answer some questions. The first question that comes up is Trudeau, anything, owl, was this a bad guy? And Q does not directly respond to it except to say that there are a billionaire pair that were killed or suicided, 187 in the last year or so, and that was a Canadian couple. He was the CEO. Talk about billionaires being 187. Talk about Five Eye, which has to do with the whole collaboration between and among United States, Great Britain, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, playing games with the DOJ, with the FBI, and the CIA, trying to take down Trump, and their interplay in it, of course. And then there's Safety House Bill, and I don't know what Safety House Bill, maybe somebody will put a point on it. Maybe it is a proposal to create a safety house, or maybe it is that these Five Eye bunch are trying to hide and create safety among themselves by interacting that way. And then there's the uranium one, funneling it to Canada, and then X. Now, so is that Iran? Is that North Korea? Is it Iraq? Is it Syria? Is it Israel? You know, could be any or all. There's a next comment about exonerating Flynn, and Q says basically patriots will protect patriots and Flynn will eventually be cleared in some fashion. So does that mean that his sentence is commuted? Does that mean he's pardoned? Does that mean that there's a withdrawal of his conviction by pleading guilty, that he is allowed to withdraw that guilty plea and then it is dismissed? That would be the best, especially since we are told that he didn't commit a crime. You know, that has been intimated on a number of cases. There should be, and of course all of this is sat in abeyance and nothing has been responded to for months and months. And of course part of the process that we have, which is typical in criminal processes, if you have a potential leaker or a cooperating witness, then you don't sentence that person until you get lined out with it. So so they're holding off on sentencing him and waiting for the end of this. All right, so then the next one is sexual misconduct is a public shelter to accept resignation. Watch those announced on the 2020 presidential running. You cannot attack a political opponent. None are protected, none are safe. And, you know, I think some of the comment is that some of these people who have claimed that they're going to run for president or who have put out balloons, the trial balloons to see, I mean, it includes Jeff Flake, it includes Oprah, it of course includes Hillary, it includes Pocahontas, Fakeahontas, and Booker, and several others. So the question then is, are they going to hide behind running for president and claim that they are exempt from sexual misconduct claims or questions, or are those things going to become prior knowledge or part of the campaign? And I think in this current environment, and that goes to another piece that I'm going to talk about in a minute, sexual misconduct is fair game anywhere, and part of it is that some of us believe that there's a great deal more going on, and it isn't just in Great Britain with Jimmy Savile and former Prime Minister Heath. This is current stuff. So please divert more resources. They apparently that what they've talked about, and I'll go ahead and do this. The last posting for the 19th is that there are individual addresses, IPs, for upwards of 300,000, and Q responds by saying there were 420,000, meaning that there are 420,000 people accessing the 8chan board for it. There are two questions that I'm going to get in trouble on this one. One of them has to do, I'll do the second one first. One of them has to do with, are we alone, Roswell. And of course, Roswell is just the earliest example of potentially divergent information about whether or not there are ETs or whether or not there are advanced space projects. And you can say, well, are they ours or are they somebody else's? I have some inside information about the Roswell matter because I can't remember his name right now. A gentleman whose dad was there and investigated, and whose dad showed him some of the Roswell materials, ended up being both an officer in the Army Reserve, and I think he was an ophthalmologist. And my family personally knows him and personally knows of his integrity and personally knows that what he saw was not what the government said it was. So, you know, that's one degree of separation. I'll take it for what it is. I think we clearly, some of you are going to disagree with me, we clearly have been visited by either extraterrestrials. We probably have some kind of space program going on, which is doing either retro engineering, that is reverse engineering what has crashed, and or cooperation with ETs. And having looked at archaeological stuff back at least 10 or 12,000 years, and one can perhaps go much further than that, there is clear evidence of intervention or involvement or engagement or interaction, call it whatever you want, with extraterrestrials. And that begs the question is, are these good guys or bad guys? And it may be that they're both. But that's a subject for another time. The other one is, and this is pretty crazy stuff, and I have spent a lot of time working on this, and that is the question, excuse me, was the Pentagon hit by a plane on 9/11? And that's a poorly worded question, unfortunately. And Q answers with a one-word answer, which is not very good either, which is yes. And I'm going to say to you, it may or may not have been something classified as a plane, probably a drone. There wasn't anybody in it. And it is not possible. I will say this, absolutely impossible. I'll put my reputation on the line, whatever reputation I have, I'll put it on the line to tell you that it is absolutely positively impossible that a Boeing 757 or 767 maneuvered as the projectile that hit the Pentagon did. Okay, absolutely impossible on multiple counts. Number one, it was going at 500 miles an hour. Number two, which is impossible at ground level. Number two, it maneuvered in a way that a 757 or Boeing, a commercial airliner, could not possibly have done. That is, it made, what, 180 degree or 90 degree tight turn. Number three, it could not at that speed have been directed exactly where it was directed. Number four, it allegedly hit and knocked over 5 or 6 or 7 light poles or power poles. A jet would have been spinning sideways or would have had pieces of wing flying a block away or a half a block away before it hit the Pentagon, even if it hit it. And number 5 or 6 or wherever I am, the alleged point of impact is about 10 feet off the ground, and that would put the nose cone of that Boeing jet at 10 feet off the ground. Well, I'm going to tell you that can't happen because it was, in order for it to do that, it would have had to drag the engines that are under the wings for 100 yards or so in the dirt, which of course would have stopped or greatly reduced the speed of the jet, and it would have either cartwheeled or crashed and been basically left in pieces in the yard. None of that's possible. And the next one is the wingspan, I think, is 260 or 80 feet on the jet, and it is clear that there was no impact at all out beyond about 160 feet width. So there are 60 or 80 feet of wingspan that both did not impact the wall, and secondly, there's no pieces of it left. Had those been broken or whatever, they would have been left outside. And finally, the projectile that hit the Pentagon penetrated 3 layers of it through 20 or 30 or 40 beams, internal beams, and then allegedly went out and through it. And I have to tell you, you can do your research any way you want to. You can't get a frail plastic, graphite, epoxy, and aluminum lightweight airplane to go through a whole series, an almost impregnable area and a reinforced Pentagon, and then through 27 beams or posts and through a couple layers. It's just not possible. So was it hit by a plane? Well, maybe. Did the plane turn loose the drone? Is the drone considered a plane? Yeah, maybe, but it wasn't hit by a Boeing. Let's just be really clear about it. And this either is a coy, playful, somewhat disingenuous response by Q, which also includes disinformation, or it's a big flag. It's one or the other. And there's nothing in between. All right, so the next one is, this is a good one. And this is highly debated among the alt group, and it is, did NASA fake the moon landings? Have we been to the moon since then? Are there secret space programs? Is this why the Space Force was created? And Q responds, and I think this is probably a reasonable response, false to the proposition. Moon landings are real programs that exist that are outside of public domain, and I think that's probably the case. You know, we've been 70 odd years since we started our space program, 60 years since Kennedy started it almost, and we obviously have progressed in ways that you and I are not, about which we're not aware. Does that mean we have a space program that's already in place? Some people say so. Would I deny it? Would I put money on it? No, not one way or the other. But I think it's pretty clear that having the Van Allen belt there and some of the flat Earth concepts, the people that claim that those rockets just looped up and dropped, did some of that happen? Is some of it faked? Is NASA giving us false information? Yes, but I think it's clear that we did go to the moon, and I think that answer is good. So I'll give you 2 out of 3, right? There have been ETs or aliens or whatever. There have been moon landings, and no, wrong. A plane did not hit the Pentagon. So we've got another comment that just came in. There are a series of comments that came in. When I started this, there were 2. Forgive me, now there are 9. It is flying in. I'm going to attempt to do something with it. There's a YouTube article, which is a Hannity 13-minute deal that goes into all of the stuff that Page and Strzok were doing and interfering with and trying to triangulate and bootstrap and give a feedback loop to the public news agencies, which of course violates the old Smith-Mundt Act, and which they have been now allowed to lie to us, to create false information and lie with impunity as a result of the amendment and modification of the Smith-Mundt Act. There is another comment here, an anon points to to various comments by Q, including one that says panic in D.C., James Baker testifying against Comey, and then Joe DeGeneva quote, and I'm not going to read it all here, but basically Q points out that there is panic in D.C., that Baker that Baker's cooperation is confirmed, question mark. Note the Inspector General is involved, and shows Huber, Horowitz, and Storch, and shows them linked. And of course, the new appointment of Storch in the NSA is impressive. If in fact they're all working, that would be impressive. There's a next anonymous one that said Q post was 28 seconds before the tweet, DJT's first tweet in about 4 hours, and Q says, correct, Anon. What does that tell you when it continually happens? And so this is, there are no coincidences, right? There's another Anon point that says things are moving, and the answer is, and I agree with this, faster than you know, but that will soon change. Revisibility. Public interest forces the sun to shine. Why are we here? And so the comment that Q makes is, it's moving faster than you can see, but we are soon going to get to the place where the stuff starts to surface, and it surfaces whether we want it to or not. We cannot hide it any longer, and we are going to see how fast it is moving. So here's a quote on Donald Trump about a guy running for Congress, and this is the linkage between the Q post and the Trump tweet. So there's that. The next one, and this gets us up to the last two postings. I'm going to try to get them in to fit it all so that we've covered everything up through midday the 20th. There's an anonymous quote that says, keep the will of the people on your side in the face of incessant gaslighting by the MSM. We are with you, but it can be very frustrating on this side of the curtain. Visibility helps. And basically what this Anon has said is what I've said and what everybody else has said, which hundreds of you have made in comments. We need to see something. We need to see more. And Q responds, imagine the frustration if we weren't here communicating with you. You are many tens of millions strong, Q. Let your voices be heard. Information is meant to be free, power to the people. And so there are multiple responses to this, one of which is, hey, look, I'm serving some benefit. I, Q, am serving some benefit by giving you insider information, hints and comments and things to look for, and I think that's definitely true. Let your voices be heard. That is, even though people have called us crazy in lots and lots of ways, starting to say, hey, look at the incongruities, look at the problems that you're seeing, look at how things are balling up, and they can no longer be explained according to the false gaslighting information of the mainstream media. And then information is meant to be free, which is another layer of this. That is, don't let people make money on doing this. And I think we should honor that as a response. And finally, there is a United States Marine Corps emblem and medallion, and the Anon says, Q, our son shipping U.S. Marine Corps recruit training, SD San Diego, I think soon. Proud for him to serve. And Q says, we thank him for his service to this country. May God watch over him always. God bless. Patriot. Where we go one, we go all. So there's your rah-rah at the end, and it's good rah-rah. So anyway, that's the comments of the other day, and 9, including 7 that flashed on after I turned this on. So I attempted to hurry through it to try to get to it, to make some kind of response to it, but also to get a linkage to you for, what is of consequence. I hesitated through the night last night about the 19th stuff on those 3 postings, which were question and answer, and I did it as much as anything because I needed to mull over my own thoughts about the Pentagon, right? So take it for what it's worth. Those are my 2 bits. Thank you so much for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. I may do something playful later today, and I may even do a couple things playful. Thanks so much for watching.